ladies and gentlemen, in case you don't remember, back in May when I did the Sly 3 review, I posted a poll asking what franchises we were going to be tackling for the summer, first being the Sonic Advance series, and if that won, then after Advance 3, I would return to the Ratchet and Clank franchise. Longtime subscribers will remember one of my earliest works, that being the classic Ratchet and Clank Marathon where I reviewed Ratchet 1, all the while comparing it to the then recently released PS4 Ratchet and Clank game, which by the way, if you want a much better video talking about why I thought the PS2 game was superior, then I recommend The Gaming Brit, seeing as he covered everything I wanted to say and then some. And much better at it, by the way. I then did Ratchet and Clank 2, 3, and ended it off with Deadlocked in Size Matters. And since the opportunity presents itself, I figured I'd finally address the Size Matters review. It's been over a year since it released, and I feel the need to apologize. The video was severely undercooked and rushed out the door, since I wanted to move on to Sly 4 at the time, which in retrospect you can tell it was already in the works before Ratchet 3 even came out, since I used the stock footage I'd been collecting behind the scenes for that review. But that's neither here nor there. It didn't help that I just got sick from the weekend at Too Many Games 2016, which was sprouting in the Deadlocked review, but again, I feel like hardly having any subs still doesn't excuse the fact that I did a lazy review of Size Matters. The game does not really deserve too much time spent on it, but that doesn't mean I get to slack off. I felt the need to apologize, since before the release of the X6 review, this is my most popular video. I suppose that's fate. Do a lazy review, and so I'll get more views to punish me. Anyway, this is a review of Secret Agent Clank, which technically was released after Tools of Destruction, so why did I decide to cover it first? Well, the reason is that I felt like this game is the send-off to the classic Ratchet series, since it's the last game to use that art style, the last game to use the logo style the brand was created with, etc. That, and I closely associate this game with Size Matters, since both were made by High Impact Games. So that begs the question, if I consider this the last game in the classic series, why didn't I review it then? Well, that can be answered quite simply. I didn't have it. And trust me, I was not shelling out the incredibly minimal amount of money to buy it. So over Christmas of 2016, I decided to order it for the purpose of this review. I didn't think it was going to take me this long to get to it, but here we are. Why did I not have it though? Well, the reason is simple. When I was a kid, most of the games I owned were a result of seeing them on the shelf and the looks of them had grabbed my attention. I hardly ever played games because of commercials or anything like that. Sly 2, I just saw it on the shelf. Jak 1, saw it on the shelf. Ratchet 2, saw it on the shelf. So in other words, it didn't take much for me to want to give a game a shot. My Ratchet and Clank fandom was at an all-time high in the late 2000s and early 2010s. I was getting every game and buying the merch, but no hyperbole here. I saw this game on the store shelves many times, whether it be the PSP version, the PS2 port, and I knew each and every single one of those times that I did not want this game. The mere concept just screamed to me that this is going to be a bad game. That is an insult. The fact that a 10-year-old kid will not buy a game in a series he loves because of how it looks? I played Sonic Labyrinth and Sonic Blast with no complaints. I would play anything with my favorite characters in it. The back of the box justifies this lack of interest. The tagline is, "This time the secret agent is the gadget," which is stupid, cringeworthy, and not true. Unleash the deadliest weapons in the galaxy and master the martial art of Clank Fu. Please, stop. Just stop. But hey, apparently you can play as Quark, right? That's nice, I guess. So yeah, Secret Agent Clank has been firmly established. I have never played this game before, and so I'm going in completely blind. Let's hope this PS2 port does a better job than High Impact's other PS2 ports. Sanzaru!
We were working with Sony back in 2008 on Secret Agent Clank, and
oh yeah, you know, I kind of forgot about that. We all know how bad they are at ports, but I doubt they could screw this up. So keep this in mind. This is a review of the PS2 version of Secret Agent Clank, and so if the PSP version's any better, it doesn't really matter. So we get to the options menu and widescreen is on it, and of course we're going to turn that on, and that's all well and good. So now I'm looking for progressive scan so I can get 480p, and wait. This game doesn't have progressive scan? I flipped through the manual multiple times, read the Wikipedia article about PS2 games with widescreen and 480p, and this game has widescreen, but not 480p. Great. What is the excuse? This game was made in 2008 and the PS2 port came out in 2009. A time when several Wii titles are being ported to the PS2, and since the Wii is 480p, the ports to the PS2 were as well. This game is not from 2001, it's not from 2004, it's from 2009, a time where HD was an industry standard. This is already a huge strike against the game and I haven't even started. Before I hit new game, I want to be perfectly clear since it's been such a long time. The classic Ratchet games are some of my favorites to revisit. I always come back to 1 through 4 at least once a year, since while I often rag on the series as a whole for what it became in later years, the classics are hard to get too upset about. I think the first game hasn't aged gracefully. However, all 4 of those games had, and always will have, witty writing, an insanely memorable cast of major and minor characters with a fleshed out universe with some pretty deep themes underneath all the wit. Most importantly, being a mascot platformer with a definitive edge to it with its fast-paced run-and-gun gameplay perfectly balanced with some insanely fluid controls in 2 through 4. And size matters is nowhere near as good as the others, with an unplayable final boss, poor camera, weak aesthetics, and a mediocre plot with inconsistent characterization, and the list goes on, but the armor system was cool, and that's about it for that game. So how does Secret Agent Clank begin? Well, we have our usual space loading screen, and at least it's 60 FPS, and it's still loading. Still loading. And this is easily the ugliest of these space loading screens, by the way, but more on that once the real review starts. So that brings us to the story. Clank is entering a museum where the Eye of Infinity is about to be stolen, and it turns out that Ratchet is responsible and gets arrested, which makes no sense. But anyway, Clank has to uncover the mystery of this incident, and that's the basic setup for the story. Thus beginning the gameplay, and oh my god, I already want to vomit. The graphics being 480i isn't even the problem. The environments just look bland and cheap. And the models are also horrible. Really blurry looking as well, with an incredulously low amount of detail put in. I get it's a PSP game on PS2, but couldn't they have tried a little harder? The port job is also bad with sound since the volume is really low, seeing as it sounds no different than a PSP speaker. Anyway, what I really have a huge issue with is the darn gameplay. Right off the bat, we've got terrible controls that feel incredibly slippery, and the worst part being the unresponsive button inputs, since I tried jumping over this easy gap and failed about 3 times. I like that they sped Clank up in comparison to his earlier appearances, but this is terrible. Also, why is it that Clank can't use the helipack? We've had that as a Ratchet and Clank staple since the very first game. No, I guess Clank needs to use jet boots to be better equipped in battle, but it's so slow. I do like the side jumps and double jump, but that's about it. The game tries to pretend it's a stealth game, but right off the bat, it's obviously not. We're told to be stealthy, but doing your basic combo a few times deals away with enemies. In stealth games, guards are supposed to be challenging to encourage you not getting caught, but this game doesn't even try. Oh look, a row of statues where you must get on top of the posts that don't have a statue and pretend to be a statue. Hello, Sucker Punch called. They want their ideas back. Wait. A mission where you tail the boss and have to take guards out one by one? That's another Sly 2 ripoff. Also, we have these stealth takedowns, which in other games required, skill or at least timing. Here, you press the button, do a QTE with no time threat since you can mess up as many times as you want, and then the game takes over for you. One of the best things about Ratchet and Clank 1 and 2 is how they show how self-centered everyone in the galaxy is by making you pay for everything.
How about I sell you these? At cost.
Sell? After we just saved your scrawny butt?
All right. I'll give you the employee discount too.
You, sir, look like someone who could use a hypnomatic.
Okay.
Just bring us the parts, and we'll make it for free.
For a fee. A very small fee.
I never liked these paywalls for gameplay reasons, but I like them in the story at least. Here we can buy moves, I guess, and also buy a gun or two, but other than that, a robot just drops gadgets in for you, like the Tyrang. But by far the dumbest has got to be how, like any good spy film, there's a trap room filled with lasers, and so what do you think is going to happen? Take some glass and reflect those lasers? That would be a good idea, but no, we throw some black goop on the lasers and that works? Also, I like how there's one on the ceiling and the game just aims there. I didn't even have to aim. Not that that would be an easy task given the atrocious camera and the awkward controls. But another thing is that whenever there are lasers, they're everywhere. And so the black goop only has 8 shots of ammo. Like, how am I supposed to use this against 20 lasers? So as if the game could be bad enough already, the second half of the stage begins, and it's by far one of the most offensive things my eyes have ever glanced in the direction of. We have a rhythm game. My god, where do I begin? Well, you know how most rhythm games want you to be in sync with the music? Secret Agent Clank doesn't even try to do that much. Seriously, Sly 4 managed that much? The biggest insult to injury being, well, wait. There are many, so let's run down the list. 1 being how terrible it looks, like the part in the hallway which looks like a poor man's Scooby-Doo. 2 being that you can miss like a million of the buttons and still get by. 3 being how none of these actions needed to be a rhythm game. 4 being those terrible jump cuts. 5 being how long it takes, and 6 being how you take damage at the end no matter what happens. My reaction while playing this is like, what am I playing? Like, what is this shit? But I'm not done yet, seeing as now you have to play as Ratchet in prison, and look at this unedited cut.
Y'all take care now. Well. Along with this cake, maybe I can have someone give you a big old birthday spanking.
What was that? So now we have to do arena battles like the old games, and I'll talk more about this later, but I'll just say for now, it lacks charm and it lacks fun since we're playing this garbage. The weapons are bare bones for Ratchet standards, and the enemies stand no chance, in addition to some really dumb decisions like how the Walloper evidently needs an ammo count now, when the whole point of the weapon was that you had to get close but you had infinite ammo. Another thing that sucks is the fact that most of the weapons are brought back from previous games, which whenever they used to do that, that was always supposed to be a cool throwback. Because one of the best things about new Ratchet games was that they always have new weapons. While they had the same archetypes like rocket launcher and blaster, it was always a new variation of it. Also, the plot in the prison's really stupid. They let the criminals fight Ratchet and allow Ratchet to use weapons to fight back because that makes perfect sense. So with that said, I could actually end this review here since this basically covers most of the game, but I won't. Here's the thing. Everything I've said so far isn't even the review. I was trying to show you what the first time player will be feeling when they play this. This is what the first half hour to 45 minutes of this game is like. I don't know many games I played that have started out this bad to the point where I decided it necessary to make this review begin with the first impressions. It was horrible. So let us waste no time and start this review properly. I already gave my thoughts on some of the gameplay elements already, but I will elaborate further. Starting with the story. I would tell you all about the story and what happens in it, but honestly, who cares? When I say who cares, I'm not saying it in a way where I mean that the story doesn't matter in a game like this, since obviously it does if that's what the developers were going for. However, Secret Agent Clank's story is hardly worth talking about, seeing as it's literally impossible. Making a game about Secret Agent Clank is a great idea. It was hilarious in Ratchet and Clank 3 that Clank played a character on TV where he was the superhero kicking ass and Ratchet was the comedic sidekick.
Bring the car around, Jeeves, and mind the ejector seat this time.
That ended up being a pretty important plot point later on, and so the idea that we were getting a game where we play some cool set pieces that he would have experienced on the show was a fantastic idea. Too bad these hacks couldn't even get that right. Like I said, this story is literally impossible. How so? Well, from the very first cutscene, it's established that Ratchet being the one who steals the Eye of Infinity is a shock to the galaxy because the hero, Ratchet, who at this point has saved the Solana Galaxy 3 times over, saved the Bogon Galaxy from a complete corporate takeover, and relieved the people of the Shadow Sector from the grasp of Dread Zone, has turned heel. But what the fuck? How is that possible since in the world of Secret Agent Clank, Ratchet plays a useless butler? In addition to that, the guys in the prison Ratchet is in want to kill him because he put them in there. This game tosses itself out of the Ratchet and Clank canon within the first few seconds. So if it is canon, are you telling me that Clank actually dons this alter ego from time to time for the fun of it? Or that he actually is a part of some agency? Well, if that's the case, why is he on TV? Aren't secret agents supposed to be just that? Secret? And if that is the case, how does he have the free time to do nothing with Ratchet all day in the other games? Captain Quark's in the game makes numerous references to past events like how Slim Cognito exists.
Slim Cognito? What are you doing here?
Seriously? After all the black market merchandise I've sold you, what do you think I'm doing here?
How Clunk from Ratchet and Clank 3 is the main villain, and so as a result it doesn't feel like it's a spin-off. This game is just too close to be a spin-off, and that alone makes the story an inconsequential mess that absolutely cannot be a real Ratchet game, and yet tries to be one. It's just confusing. What I have just done is present a countless amount of evidence to back up my claims in regards to why this game cannot possibly be canon, but really, I can sum the entire thing up in one line of dialogue from Up Your Arsenal.
I believe there has been a misunderstanding. Secret Agent Clank is merely a fictional character I play on the horror video.
And please don't give me any of that spin-off crap, because if it was a spin-off, which I don't feel like it was, being a spin-off does not give the writers an excuse to do whatever the fuck they want to and make contradictions this horrendous. So therefore, talking about the story would serve no purpose beyond filling the timestamp of this video, since it's simply impossible. So let's talk about the story. So is it at least entertaining like the first 4 games and sort of size matters? No, not at all. The story being impossible doesn't make it bad in and of itself, but the way the story is written is just terrible. Ratchet and Clank stories have several elements, those being constantly evolving and likable characters, funny dialogue, expressive character animation, surprising plot twists, social commentary, suggestive humor, and amazing voice acting, and you will find none of it here. That is no joke, by the way. This is by far the worst story in this series. When I describe the plot in the first 30 minutes of the game, I'm telling you that that is just how it is for the whole game. Clank wants to prove Ratchet innocent, and so he goes from planet to planet chasing down the Eye of Infinity. That is it. Every planet he finds some over-the-top mustache twirler who gives him a lead to the next level. I used the phrase constantly evolving to describe the last 5 games since the status quo hardly remained the same for long in those games. Let me prove it by discussing those stories. In the original, the first third of the game was spent with Ratchet and Clank searching for Quark, and then when they found him, they got betrayed by him, and that begins the second third where they fight one another and continue to uncover more of Drek's plan. And the final phase comes after the defeat of Quark, where Ratchet and Clank have made up and are now determined to defeat Drek and save Veldin. In 2 through 5, I can find examples of this, like how 2 begins with you chasing after the thief in the experiment, but ended with Ratchet and Clank alongside the help of Angela, who was the thief from earlier, trying to end the galaxy-wide monopoly that Megacorp has over the people of Bogon before the protopet epidemic destroys the galaxy from within. Like I said, even Size Matters has this down, seeing as all throughout the game there was new plot twists around every corner, keeping the story fresh and interesting, character contradictions notwithstanding. My point is that this bare bones story has no right pretending it has anything to do with the high quality writing the classic Ratchet was known for. This game is just a MacGuffin hunt, and not an entertaining one at that. Every planet is the same shit over and over and over again, and as opposed to exploring different societies, interacting with different natives, we're instead doing tasks and hardly meeting anyone, or doing anything, and when we do that, it's just one cliche after another, like the ballroom dance, which is yet another Sly 2 ripoff, or the scientist who's kept hostage by the big bad guy to work on a secret weapon of mass destruction who gets freed and never appears again. Ratchet's part of the story is just nonsense, given how he has to fight henchmen from previous games since the guards are completely out of their minds today, and that's it for that. And at the end of the story, they actually have you stop the prison break, which is just obnoxious. Quark is in the story, and all he does is tell some loser fake stories about how amazing he is, and while that sounds great, when you hear this god-awful dialogue, you'll quickly change your mind. The reason Quark is doing this is because it's revealed that Clunk from Up Your Arsenal is behind all of this, like I said, which comes as a breath of fresh air since this story finally goes somewhere. And he set the not journalist up with Quark so he'd be distracted from the real story. Clunk being revealed as the villain came too little too late for me, seeing as I stopped caring about this nonsense about 2 minutes in. Also, Clunk? Really? Didn't we reduce him to scrap back in Ratchet 3? Even then, Clunk literally has no character. He was there as a fake Clank to keep Ratchet off guard since Nefarious captured the real Clank. And speaking of Nefarious, now that Clunk has a personality, he just parrots what Nefarious said.
You are a hero to robots across the galaxy, and yet you deny your own destiny. You choose to bow and scrape before the squishes. Where is your pride in who you are, Agent Clank?
Organic life forms have as much right to inhabit this galaxy as we do. I see no reason to exclude them.
Let's
start by the way you kowtow to that furry, whatever it is. He is dumber and weaker than you, and yet you ride around on his back like some kid on a carousel. Ratchet has proven his worth as a hero and a friend. I am privileged to help him with his missions. Ha! What a load of self-deluding garbage.
Totally original writing, guys. One plus you might be thinking about is the voice acting, right? Well, not really. I mean, the cast is the same as always, with James Arnold Taylor, David Kaye, and Jim Ward all back as Ratchet, Clank, and Quark, but they turn in their worst performances to date, which isn't the fault of the actors, it's the fault of the terrible scriptwriters who thought these god-awful jokes were funny. Also, the new additions are just bad. Like, bad. Or cliche, same difference.
I see. Thank you for the information.
I thought you were going to let me go.
And I thought you would try to kill me if I did, so I opted not to.
Ah! Taste my laser, Agent Clank.
Secret Agent Clank thinks it's being clever with the high abundance of toilet humor, which never ceases to make my blood boil. The only thing I need to prove my point would be the part where Captain Quark starts singing, and oh my god, the song is horrible. The lyrics suck, the singing is terrible, and I don't know how I'm meant to feel about this since it's not bad enough to be a parody, but it's not good enough to be a song, so I don't know what it is.
Here's the first verse, how I saved everyone from being food for the clam dudes. They were trying to sink the city. I jumped in to save the day. I swam right under it and plugged the leak with just my left butt cheek.
So many moments are just contrived, which comes with the territory for a game that's just a MacGuffin hunt.
Perhaps we could do this again sometime.
Doubtful.
Oh! Gods! Seize him!
But the icing on top of this shit sundae would be the cringe-inducing moments. Oh god, the cringe-inducing moments.
Oh. Hello there.
Captain Quark?
Oh, it's me, all right. Big floppy ears, big green eyes, big hands, big...
Ratchet.
Feet.
Quark singing was already bad, but dick jokes in a Ratchet and Clank game, especially ones that are not funny, really crosses a line for me.
Look, plumber's crack.
What did you just say?
I said, look, the plumber's back.
All right, wise guy. Shouldn't you be on one of them escape transports?
Escape transports?
Newsflash, giant robots attacking! The escape transports are taking all the rich folks off this god-darn planet.
So why aren't you on one?
Socioeconomic disparity.
What?
He hasn't got enough bolts.
Hello? We've got more moonstones.
No, you have not.
What?
Existence is a lie. Sensations are illusions. Possessions are merely visions.
All right, I've got an illusion of some moonstones. I'll trade it for a vision of that hypnomatic part.
You have learned much, young one.
Ah, good times. Instead, we have tripe like the scene where Ratchet is in the shower of the prison, and he must fight enemies, even there, which results in his towel coming off his body, as we now have to play a buck-naked Ratchet with a sensor bar where his ass should be. What the fuck did I just say? I feel like I'm reading an article from fanfic.net, not playing a real game that came out in stores and people had to pay to play it. Bullshit like this makes Sly Cooper Thieves in Time, one of the worst scripts of all time, look like Uncharted 2 or Trials and Tribulations. This is a joke, and not the way the developers wanted it. This series has had plenty of funny moments, but when the situation called for it, the characters would always shut up and take it seriously.
We, still need to fix that arm.
This is the kind of garbage that can kill the dignity of any franchise. But thankfully, this utter crap sold no copies, so we don't have to worry about that. What more can I say about the story? It makes no sense, it's badly written, it's repetitive, it's boring, predictable, and literally cannot take place in the Ratchet and Clank canon. Did I like anything about the story? No, I really didn't. The voice acting cannot save a truly dreadful script with some of the worst attempts at humor I've ever seen in my life. I cringed my way through the entire plot, and now I never want to have to think about it again going forward, since it's not like these events will ever be relevant again. So that leads us to the presentation, and it sucks. Look, I'm legitimately running out of adjectives to describe it. I mentioned how the models and the environments don't look good, and I get this is a result of it being on the PSP, ported to the PS2, however, it just lacks style and substance like Metal Gear Solid Portable Ops or Sonic Rivals 2 or Maverick Hunter X or Daxter even. Games that I think made up for being in the PSP with a quality art direction. The cutscenes look terribly fuzzy, which again, I can't vouch for the PSP version, but if Sanzaru really did the game that little justice, then I wouldn't be surprised. But if the fault does lie on the port, then could Sanzaru not have put a little more money into this to polish the presentation? Oh wait, this is Sanzaru. The guys who are so incompetent that they couldn't put 480p in a game from 2009. Guys who are so incompetent that they thought putting 480p on the back of the box for a PS3 game from 2013 was a good idea. The animation's alright, I guess? No, never mind, it's horrible. And I have one example to prove my point. But it's a PSP game and therefore we cannot mention the animations or else you're a nitpicker.
Take that!
What do I mean? Well, like Ratchet 2 and onwards, Secret Agent Clank allows you to strafe, and as Clank and Ratchet, it's fine since they just ripped it out of the old games. However, for Quark, look at this. Look at this! His whole lower body rotates around just to strafe. They couldn't animate that? They couldn't animate him moving his legs backwards and sideways. They had to rotate the character model around? I can't believe this! Did they do that on purpose? Like, did the budget run out? If they did this on purpose, what self-respecting game developers would put something like this in? Which just makes them look incompetent. Ocarina of Time from 1998 didn't seem to have a problem with this. And back on that, but it's just a PSP game and it's just a spin-off, I'm just a nitpicker who's saying that this ruins the game and therefore I shouldn't be taken seriously. No, I said this earlier and it bears repeating. This doesn't make the game unplayable, it just serves to make the game look bad. But that covers the graphics. So how's the soundtrack? Well, David Bergo, who composed the first 5 games, Tools of Destruction, and I believe Quest for Booty, is here to do Secret Agent Clank, and that had me excited since the music was one of the highlights of the classic series, with pieces fitting the atmosphere phenomenally. After the amazing Secret Agent Clank theme and Up Your Arsenal, I was ready for this crap. Yeah, even the OST is bad. The worst Ratchet soundtrack by far, so that's just forgettable spy fodder. The composition itself is fine, but who would ever listen to this shit? I already had to give a semi-compliment to this game when saying this is at least 60 frames per second, but that was for the damn loading screens. These are some of the most miserable loading screens I've ever had to sit through. The background is the same thing on loop with the ship popping out of existence when it touches the edge of the screen. Most of the time is spent staring at the background as opposed to the ship. And that reminds me, you know what it was that I liked about the old Ratchet loading screens? It felt like you were on an adventure since in between planets you see the ship traveling through space. While this is obviously a loading screen, it's charming, showing that you really are traveling across the galaxy and not going from level to level. They were also really short too, so never overstayed their welcome. This game doesn't even get that right. You only saw these screens in between planets, which should be a no-brainer. On the planets themselves, a fade to black is all we really need, right? This game cuts up moments frequently, and how does it do that? Well, let's take this example. An escape convoy is getting away, and so we hop on board, and the next segment is on top of these ships in the sky of the level we were just playing through. And what is the transition? A space loading screen? So is this not a part of the game's world anymore and is just a generic loading screen? I suppose so, seeing as the ship we see traveling is also the transition between Clank levels and Quark levels, which obviously makes no sense. Yet another area where the classics had you covered. In Ratchet 1, the duo changed ships frequently, and the loading screens reflected this since the people who made that game knew how to pay attention to detail. But the real problem is the fucking length. This is a game on the PS2, ported from the PSP, and yet the loading screens are longer than Sonic 06 and Sly 4. No excuse whatsoever. This is not a game that should demand the PS2's full power, let alone need a 1-minute loading screen all the time. Have a look. Sly 4 loses to this game by a fraction of a second, but that is still horrendous. You might say that 06 loads all the time, which is true, but this game does as well, like I just said. There are space loading screens in the levels themselves. That should be enough evidence to tell you that this game is fucking horrible. I'm about to drop a bomb, so let's just get it out of the way. Somebody please give me a copy of X6, because that game is miles better than this unplayable disgrace. I beat X6 multiple times for that review, and yet I could hardly sit through this game once. I was so pissed after my first 30 minutes that I decided to start the script that same day, ranting about how bad the opening of this game is, not knowing just how terrible it gets in later levels. I had enough material after 30 minutes. That sucks. When I got to the 2-hour mark, I almost shed a tear at the thought of touching the controller. This is unbearable. Now let's move on to the gameplay. I don't even know what to say. I can keep this really brief. This game sucks. I already talked about how awful the controls are, which holds true for the entire game, and combined with the hideous graphics, I fall into pits I shouldn't have all the time. If you've played any of the far superior classic Ratchet games, then you'd know how to play this crap at the very least. But seriously, the combat is some of the worst I've ever played. Clank has his nearly unusable Clank Fu, which is just bad. I don't really know what to say. It sucks. Meaning all the moments using the combat system are a complete chore. Doesn't help that these are some of the worst weapons in Ratchet and Clank history. The tire rangs are too slow, and while the bomb weapon's alright, the other ones are just so bad that I just found no use for them, beyond the moments that they may or may not be required, like the plant weapon, which releases a Venus flytrap when an enemy steps on it. What great ideas! And the fire weapon is so stupid. This is no joke. When you use the fire weapon to melt locked doors, the game plays the sound effect and has the after effects of a buzzsaw. Take a look.
Some metals and organics melt with enough heat. Use your flamethrower on them.
That is a joke. Other weapons are just bland, lack any pizzazz, and are occasionally difficult to use given how bad they are, like the one where Clank shoots a hologram of a vase. Great, as I roll my eyes. The gadgets are also incredibly frustrating. Take the lockpick for Secret Agent Clank, for example. We have to play a poor man's Tetris? Never thought I'd have to say that about a Ratchet game, but here I am doing that very thing. Although one of the worst gadgets in Ratchet and Clank history has got to be the holo monocle. Clank uses it to take pictures of people, to pose as them, and getting these shots is so cumbersome so that you have to get the perfect profile pic, but the targets are always on the move, and so you need to get close, but that risks getting caught by the guards who will just stop everything and catch me out of freaking nowhere. Great. But you can't get too close or else you get caught right away for posing as someone when you're right next to them, but that would be fine, but this game reuses character models like it's nobody's business. The stealth in this game is a catastrophe. This was just never going to work. Ratchet is a series about this.
Sure, they made for great platformers as well, but they were sold on the run and gun gameplay. Running and gunning just doesn't mesh with stealth. Not that this is a stealth game, mind you, seeing as these are some of the most pathetic stealth mechanics I've ever seen. But conceptually, it just does not work at all for me. So does it at least handle well? Do you even have to ask? It is terrible. Like I established, the guards will just break routine at random to catch me, giving me a game over. The camera also does not help in this case since it never focuses on relevant information, and therefore I continue to get caught over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Some of the level design is just so bad that I had rage quit numerous times from this shitload of fuck. One of those times being in the sewer level where you have to punch blocks with a terrible hit combo, and the amoeboids continue spawning to raise my blood pressure through the roof. And as if these puzzles weren't easy enough, the level makes you do them over and over again, which makes me so livid. There are so many examples of me rage quitting that I lost count. One of those moments being the combat on top of the convoy, another being these horrid minigames, and with that said, I think it's time to dive into them. These are some of the worst minigames I've ever played. I already talked about Ratchet, but I'll add that one, it is weird that Ratchet can now shoot fire from his wrench, but beyond that, it just feels like a watered down version of the arena battles of Ratchet 2, 3, and Deadlocked as a whole. Those were fun breaks from the core gameplay to fight in the arena, level up your weapons, and win prizes, but since you hardly buy things in this game, why would you ever want this shallow hogwash? See, I told you I'm running out of adjectives. The Ratchet segments and the Gadgetbot sections actually pretend you want to play more of this crap optionally. Like, I don't even want to play the mandatory missions because they're so bad, let alone optional ones. The Giant Clank segments in 1 through 3 were a ton of fun. You could go crazy and smash through buildings as you fight a giant opponent. Here, they got none of that. Giant Clank was fun because it was brief and unscripted, allowing you to tear through whatever you wanted. Here, when playing as Quark, it's so scripted that it hurts, like having to punch guys into switches or throwing bombs back at the bad guy. Stuff like this just kills it for me, in addition to these bits taking 10 minutes each. Yeah, 10 minutes of Quark singing, I so wanted that. Also, this is where the only bosses in the game are. Like, seriously, as Clank, you hardly fight any bosses until the very end of the game. But thank the Lord, the review's almost done, so let's just get on with it. The rhythm games. I talked about how bad the one at the beginning was, but that was a godsend in comparison to this utter drivel. There is just plainly no rhythm here, no beat to follow, it's just pressing buttons, and the timing is so precise, making the slightest slip-ups happen all the time. But sometimes the game decides you did it wrong and punishes you, but other times it just gives up and lets you go on. The one in the ballroom was one of the ugliest scenes I've ever seen in a game, by the way. But the poker game is the worst offender by far. Like, this isn't even musical, so why is it a rhythm game with rhythm bonuses? I just don't get this game. It's so bad. Also, gotta love the stupid archetypes playing as minorities. That was such an important inclusion, right guys? These sections are tedious, bullshit, make me scratch my head with how they work, and aren't even in sync. What a train wreck. Another gimmick would be the return of the Gadgetbots, which aided Clank in puzzle solving in the old games, but not anymore they don't. Now you control them as they fight enemies. They can't jump or really do anything other than rip Sonic heroes off and solve some of the most basic puzzles you'll ever see. Rinse and repeat. My god, what is wrong with these developers? Who thought 10 to 20 minutes of fighting enemies with mechanics more simple than the extra styles in Sly 3 was a good idea? I almost broke down at this part in the poker game. I'm not kidding, guys. It is so boring and mind-numbing that I literally could not continue to look at these horrible graphics, nor could I find it in my ability to push the buttons in the controller. I was fucking done. So I went downstairs and watched TV. This game fucking sucks. It literally feels like a movie tie-in game at times. Like Madagascar 3, the video game. A game rushed out to store shelves to meet a movie deadline and therefore has no polish and repeats the same shallow content again and again. But it's not! This is an entry release as a part of a legitimate franchise. Similar to X6, people will buy this expecting a real game, but no, it is terrible. I have no words left. After I quit the poker game, I didn't touch this game for 2 straight days. In that time, I played through all of Sly 1 and Sly 2 again, recording them along the way for this video, and I had a fantastic time. Those are examples of how to do everything this game tried to do, and then some. The Sly Cooper trilogy have much better gameplay, make for much better spy parodies, and are actually well written and don't feel like kids' fodder.
If you like Ratchet and Clank and have yet to play this game and are curious as to how they handle this sort of setup, don't play this game. Never play this game. Play the Sly Trilogy if you have not already. I'm sure that will fill whatever niche you were hoping to fill with this tripe. And that's about it. This game is unspeakable. Like I said, if you plan on telling me the PSP version is better, I guess it is, but I'm not touching it for as long as I live. I hated the PS2 version, and that's what I played and that's what I reviewed. If you want to know how boring and repetitive this game is, well, this review is based on the first 4 to 5 hours of this 10-hour game. You heard me, people. Once I got to the part with the platforms, I was done. After that, I watched TGX's review, talked to him about it, watched a Let's Play, which is where I got the bonus footage of the PSP version, link in the description, and that's when I saw the abysmal parts in the shower and the truly awful jokes to come in the second half, and I realized that this game not only goes on forever, but it does the same tricks again and again and again. Is that similar to Sly 2, one of my favorites? No, not at all. That was a fun game. These mechanics are just broken. These mechanics are just not fun. These mechanics are barely playable. Do I really need to keep powering through a game that drives me to tears with how dull it is just to tell you that a snowboard section sucks or that the final boss is crap? I really don't think so. By the time I got to the hour-and-a-half mark, I had seen everything that this game has to offer, and the fact that it goes on for like another 8 hours is pathetic. Again, Size Matters was not a great game, but it was only 3 to 6 hours long. That is perfectly fine. This is one of the worst games I have ever played in my entire life. Once again, I have to clarify, there are plenty of games that are far more broken and bad, but I have never enjoyed a game less than Secret Agent Clank. A game with loading times this long, graphics this bad, controls this awkward, combat this terrible, minigames this drawn out, and writing this atrocious. I don't understand how it can get any worse. I said already, I beat Mega Man X6 over 3 times with the review, and yet here I am with this shit, and I just put the controller down and walked away. To think that while I was editing my X6 review and playing that crap for hours on end, there was Secret Agent Clank sitting on my shelf, never having been touched. I am most certainly never playing this game again. So to answer the question in the title, of course not. This makes a terrible end to the classic series. So much so that I'm probably going to sell this game off pretty soon. I want nothing to do with it. But with that said, that concludes my rant on Secret Agent Clank. I hope you all enjoyed it, as we can now finally move on to reviewing real Ratchet and Clank games in the next episode. See you guys then.